What if your beauty was the very thing that made you invisible? Not because it wasn't noticed, but because it was all they saw. They want you, but they don't see you. In the beginning, it felt like worship. His gaze wrapped around you like a warm current. The compliments were daily affirmations that you were extraordinary, exceptional, rare. And now, there's only quiet. The same body, the same face, the same presence, but the reverence is gone. You stand in the same light, but it no longer sparkles in his eyes. Something has shifted, and though no words have been spoken, your body receives the message clearly. You are no longer being admired. So you begin to search for where you went wrong. Maybe it's your weight, your skin, your smile. Maybe you've stopped being surprising. Maybe someone younger, softer, newer is now taking up space in his imagination. You do what women are taught to do when love feels like it's slipping. You self-correct. You work out harder. You eat less. You research skincare routines at 2 a.m. You consider the surgery you swore you'd never want. Not because you don't value yourself, but because you fear disappearing. You fear becoming just enough to be kept, but not stunning enough to be chosen again. You start chasing your own image, trying to return to a version of yourself that once made you feel irreplaceable. But here's the painful contradiction. When admiration fades, so does your anchor. You begin to believe that you were only valuable when you were new, only lovable when you surprised him, only safe when he couldn't stop staring. So you keep trying to surprise him again, with your abs, your brows, your hair, your silence. But what if the love wasn't lost, only the performance? What if you were never meant to be a firework? What if your real essence was not in dazzling from a distance, but in burning slowly, unmistakably, near? Our culture has trained women to confuse being desired with being worthy. And so when desire softens, which it must, we spiral. We assume it's our failure, that we've slipped, that someone younger, more radiant is always waiting in the wings. But love is not a stage, and you are not an act to keep fresh. You are not a decorative phase in someone else's story. You are a presence, a whole being whose value was never meant to rise and fall with external hunger. The tragedy is not that the compliments faded. The tragedy is that you believed their absence meant your value did too. And here's the real question. Have you spent more time trying to stay beautiful for him than staying in love with yourself? Because the woman who remains in love with her own reflection, not out of vanity, but reverence, never truly fades. She doesn't need to be admired to feel radiant. She moves, evolves, transforms, not to keep his eyes, but to stay enchanted by her own becoming. In the beginning, he was mesmerized, not just by your beauty, but by your aliveness. And aliveness cannot be frozen in time. It must be fed. So maybe it's not admiration that disappeared, but your self-devotion, because the woman who pleases herself inspires. And the woman who burns for herself ignites everything around her. Now we ask, what was stolen from you to make you believe your beauty was only real when it was reflected back? We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Sigmund Freud. You think you just want to feel beautiful again, but what if what you really want is to feel seen? What if the compliments, the attention, the way he once looked at you, what if those were never about your beauty at all? What if they were the only language you ever learned for love? Freud believed that libido, our psychic energy, is not just about sex. It's the force behind all desire, all longing, all attachment. And in childhood, this energy doesn't flow randomly. It is first directed toward our earliest caregivers, the mother, the father, the ones who held or withheld our first gaze. In Freud's theory of the Oedipus complex, the child falls in love with the parent of the opposite sex. Not romantically, but existentially. The father becomes the unreachable hero, the mother the original mirror. We long to be chosen, to be the most loved, to be special in their eyes. But most of us were never fully seen. Maybe your father was distant. Maybe your mother was critical. Maybe the love was conditional, only given when you looked pretty, behaved nicely, performed perfectly. So your young psyche learned a dangerous lesson. To be loved, I must please. Fast forward to now, you meet someone, They admire you. They flood you with attention. You bloom under their gaze, and it feels like home. But it's not home. It's a reenactment. You're not just falling in love. You're trying to finish an old story. You want the admiration to return because it feels like safety, like worth, like the attention you once had to earn. So when it fades, even slightly, it's not just a relationship shift. It's a primal abandonment. You feel yourself unravel, not because he stopped complimenting you, but because the little girl inside you fears she's no longer good enough to be kept. This is the cost of the lie. If you feel a connection, hit subscribe and keep exploring with Senthora. Grateful for your support. It goes deeper than you think. That love is something you must perform for. That beauty is currency. That if you stop dazzling, you'll be discarded. So you sharpen yourself. Again, you beautify. You overfunction. You whisper, look at me, love me, choose me, with every new act of perfection. But here's the cruel twist. The more you perform, the more you disappear. Freud taught us that we don't just love people, we project onto them. We cast unconscious roles onto our partners. He becomes your father. You become his mother. And the relationship becomes theater, not truth. You're no longer two adults meeting soul to soul. You're two wounded children acting out forgotten scripts. You want him to make you feel wanted again. But maybe what you really want is your father to finally say, you are enough. And until you see this clearly, you'll keep mistaking your partner's attention for salvation. You'll keep meeting compliments to prove you still exist. But love is not a rescue, and your partner is not your parent. The deeper truth is this. When you pour all your libido outward into pleasing, impressing, seducing, you abandon the only relationship that could ever make you whole, the one with yourself. So now ask yourself, have you spent your life trying to be beautiful enough to deserve love, instead of discovering how to be whole enough to receive it? Where id was, there ego shall be. Sigmund Freud. You think your desire to be beautiful is yours, but what if it was planted long before you could choose? From the first time someone said, look how pretty she is, your path began to take shape. You learned, without being told directly, that beauty was your offering, that to be seen was to be good, that approval came in glances, praise, and the soft tones reserved for girls who pleased. This is not love. This is conditioning. Freud taught that our identity is built on unresolved tensions between instinct and culture. The id wants pleasure. The superego demands conformity. And in the middle, the ego tries to survive, often through masks. As a woman, one of the earliest masks you were handed was beauty. But not beauty as expression. Beauty as negotiation, as social capital, as protection. You were taught to smile even when you felt rage, to be agreeable even when your soul screamed no, to be attractive but not threatening, desirable but not demanding, presentable but never too powerful. And so you crafted a self who could survive. You learned to be the good girl, the helpful partner, the beautiful girlfriend. You adjusted your desires to match what others expected, and over time those adjustments hardened into identity. But here's the wound. The self you built was never fully yours. You edited your soul to remain lovable. You trimmed your truth to stay chosen. You dimmed your depth so you wouldn't be called too much. You didn't become a woman. You became what they needed a woman to be. And every time you were praised for it, you felt safe, but also unseen. Because deep down, you knew they were admiring the version of you that cost you the most to maintain. This is what psychologists call the false self, a personality built not from essence, but from adaptation, a survival strategy. And the more you are rewarded for it, the harder it becomes to return to your real voice. This is why it hurts so much when the compliments fade. Not because you've lost beauty, but because you fear losing your only known way to be worthy. But here's the truth no one told you. The self you performed was never required. You were lovable before the mask. You were beautiful in the raw. You were told to become someone so you could be loved. But real love begins only when you start unbecoming. And this is not just personal, it's cultural. Entire industries exist to keep women addicted to improvement, to confuse self-worth with appearance, to make you believe your power lies in your surface, so you never rebel with your soul. Because a woman who stops performing is dangerous. She is unpredictable. She is free. She is no longer trying to be liked. And that makes her luminous in a way that no mascara can mimic. So now ask yourself, who taught you to perform? And what would happen if you finally stopped? Adornment. What a science. Beauty. What a weapon. Modesty. What elegance. Coco Chanel. Let's get one thing clear. You don't have to stop wanting to feel beautiful. You don't have to throw away your makeup, burn your heels, or pretend you don't care how you look. You're allowed to love your reflection. You're allowed to want to feel stunning. That's not the problem. The problem is why you're doing it. Do you put on that dress to feel alive in your own skin? Or because you're hoping he'll finally look at you the way he used to? Do you go to the gym to feel powerful and connected to your body? Or to make sure you're not the one being left behind? Do you stand in front of the mirror and smile because you like who you see? Or because you're still trying to win back the attention you lost? This is the lie society told us, that beauty only matters if someone else confirms it. So we fall into extremes. Either we chase perfection to the point of exhaustion, or we reject beauty entirely and call it liberation. But there's a third way, the real way, and it's this: beauty isn't the problem. It's the motive. When you get dressed in the morning, you should feel like you're meeting yourself, not auditioning for someone else's approval. You shouldn't have to earn the right to feel beautiful. You already are. You shouldn't have to keep up some impossible version of yourself just to stay lovable. The truth is, the woman who is lit up by her own joy, her own power, her own taste, that woman is unforgettable. She becomes a force, not because she's trying to be perfect, but because she's already whole. When a woman is in love with herself, it shows. It's not about narcissism. It's about presence. You walk into the room and people notice, not just because of how you look, but because of how you exist. Confident, grounded, glowing. So no, you don't have to stop wanting to be beautiful, but stop giving it away just to feel worthy. Stop using beauty to survive. Start using it to celebrate yourself. Because when you dress for your own eyes, when you move for your own joy, when you care for yourself because it makes you feel alive, that's the kind of beauty no one can take from you. Ask yourself honestly, would you still want to look this way if no one else was watching? Nothing can dim the light which shines from within. Maya Angelou. You thought he stopped wanting you because your beauty changed. But what if the truth is, you stopped feeling beautiful, and he just picked up on that? We think men choose bodies, but that's not the full story. They choose energy, just like women choose energy in men. You've seen it yourself. Two women walk into a room. One has perfect features. The other has a presence, something you can't describe, and somehow all eyes go to her. It's not just the face. It's the feeling she carries, the way she walks. Not for anyone, but because she likes how she moves. The way she glances in the mirror and genuinely likes what she sees, not because someone else told her to. This is what men really fall in love with, even if they don't know how to name it. It's not just the shape of your lips. It's whether you smile like you believe you deserve joy. It's not just your skin. It's whether you touch your body with care. or treat it like a project, always under construction. The truth is, when you stop feeling alive, admired, wanted, not by others, but by yourself, your energy shifts. You become hesitant, distant, and he can feel that. He doesn't think she's no longer beautiful, but something in him feels that the light dimmed, and he doesn't know why. So he starts to drift, not because you failed, but because you disconnected from your own fire. And that's the real secret. You're not replaced because someone younger or prettier showed up. You're replaced because somewhere along the way, you stopped showing up for yourself. This isn't about blame. This is about power. Because once you understand this, everything changes. When you light your own fire again, when you nourish your body, your thoughts, your spirit, the room feels it. People lean in, eyes return, not because you asked, but because you remembered who you are. And here's the twist. This kind of radiance doesn't need to chase anyone. It simply is. You don't need to beg to be seen. You just need to see yourself first. And in that silence, where you no longer ask, explain, prove, something shifts. You're not cold. You're whole. And that wholeness is louder than any performance you've ever done. So ask yourself gently, when did I stop feeling radiant? And what might happen if I chose to fall in love with myself again? The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. Let's strip it all down now. You've spent years performing a version of yourself, adapting, adjusting, hoping your reflection would bring someone closer, hold someone longer, make someone stay. But now you know the truth. It wasn't your fading beauty that changed the story. It was your fading connection to yourself. You stopped looking in the mirror and seeing a woman worth admiring, not because she wasn't there, but because you stopped showing up for her. So how do you return? How do you rebuild your radiance from the inside when you've been trained to chase it from the outside? Here are 5 non-obvious, non-performative, and deeply personal practices. They won't just change how you look, they will change how you exist. Stop getting ready to be seen. Get ready to see yourself. For 1 week, when you get dressed, don't ask, does this make me look good? Instead, ask, do I like how I feel in this? This one switch will expose how many of your choices are for someone else's gaze, and how much beauty you've been outsourcing. Wear perfume when you're alone. Dress up with nowhere to go. Let your aesthetic serve your soul, not the crowd. Speak aloud to your reflection until it becomes real. Not affirmations, not fake hype, something raw. Look into your own eyes and say, I want to know you again. I want to fall back in love with the way you exist. It'll feel strange, maybe even painful, but stay there. Most women have never actually spoken to themselves with affection, and this alone can begin to repair years of emotional distance. You don't need to believe it yet. You just need to try. And use your stuff. Give your energy to your body before anyone else. Before you text, before you scroll, before you ask anyone how they feel. Ask yourself, what do I feel in my stomach right now? My chest, my hands. Most of us live from the neck up, and in doing so, we abandon the very body we expect to radiate beauty. Move, touch your own skin with reverence. Put your hand on your heart and listen. The body that you critique is starving for your attention. Practice mirror fasting and then mirror worship. For 3 days, avoid all mirrors, completely. No makeup checks, no photos, just being in your body without assessing it. You'll notice your obsession with your image fades. Your senses sharpen. You begin to feel your beauty instead of tracking it. Then, after 3 days, light a candle, stand in front of the mirror, And look, not for flaws, but for fire. Name out loud 5 things you admire about your face, your energy, your presence. Watch what happens. Schedule pleasure the way you schedule pain. You plan for meetings, you plan for chores, you even plan for workouts. But do you plan to feel good with no reason at all? Set a weekly calendar invite called My Radiance Hour. 1 hour just for you. No phones, no pleasing, no explaining. It can be music, dancing, long baths, drawing, journaling, silence. What matters is this. You're practicing being for yourself, not because of what you give, but because of who you are. And finally, remember this. A woman who is alive in her own energy, who does not beg to be seen, who dresses and moves and speaks in a way that pleases her own cells, that woman is unforgettable. Not because she's trying to be, but because she's not performing anything. She's just being. So here's what to do next. Stop waiting for permission to love your reflection. Stop measuring your worth by how much he notices. Start creating beauty from within, not decoration, but devotion. Your energy is your signature, and when it returns to you, so does your power. So ask yourself now, if I treated my beauty as a relationship, not a performance, how would I show up differently? You were told to pick a side. Be soft or strong. Be beautiful or wise. Be desirable or self-respecting. But what if none of these are opposites? What if being beautiful for yourself is an act of strength? What if desiring love doesn't make you weak, but whole? We live in a world that punishes women for wanting to be seen and then blames them when they go unseen. You're not shallow for wanting to glow. You're not vain for loving your reflection. The sacred lies in the motive. The shift from, do you like this, to, I love how I feel in this. And here's the great paradox. The more you return to yourself, the more others are magnetized to you. Not because you chase them, but because you stopped chasing anything at all. They feel it. The quiet fire, the peace that doesn't perform. You don't ask to be chosen. You are the choosing. And in that still, radiant power, you become untouchable. Not because you're hard, but because you are full. Let them wonder what changed. Let them try to name your glow. But you will know. You stopped asking and started adoring. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Anais Nin. Now you see it, don't you? It was never about the dress, never about the makeup, the curves, the compliments. It was about the mirror and who you believed you had to be to stay loved inside it. But something has shifted. You no longer stand in front of that mirror asking, will he still want me? Now you ask, do I want myself? And that question, that one question, changes everything. You are not the woman you were when this journey began. You no longer chase validation like oxygen. You no longer fear being replaced because you no longer replace yourself with the version others want you to be. You've returned. Returned to the body that is yours, to the face that has weathered and witnessed, to the soul that was never meant to be packaged. You now understand. Beauty is not about becoming who he wants. It's about revealing who you are. And when you are devoted to your own radiance, not because you're flawless, but because you are alive, everything changes. You become the one who chooses. You become the standard. You become the mirror, and let others reflect you. This is not arrogance, this is reclamation. You are no longer waiting to be loved. You are living as someone who is. And here's the miracle. When a woman becomes her own source of warmth, she melts everything around her. She doesn't have to beg for love. She becomes a place where love remembers how to arrive. The energy you once scattered, you now carry. The beauty you once chased, you now become. The longing you once felt, it no longer aches. It anchors. So let the world say what it will. Let the trends change. Let the gaze wander. Let the silence come. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be. And that presence, raw, sovereign, unshakable, is the most unforgettable kind of beauty there is. If this journey spoke to you, If it reminded you of the power you forgot was yours. If it woke up the part of you that's ready to come home to herself. Write in the comments. I choose to be who I want and how I want. Let's see how many women are ready to stop fitting in and start living a life of pleasure for myself and no one else. If this shifted something in you, don't stop here. Watch the next videos and go deeper into your own clarity. See you there.